welcome back to my channel. Today is the start of yet another reading vlog. Today is Sunday, which means it's already December 5th, I believe. Wow, the days are going by super fast. So I did want to update you on my reading progress. I've only finished one book so far in December, and that was Of Women in Salt by Gabriela Garcia. I really liked it. It is a historical fiction, and it's a multi-generational tale following 5 women, Cuban Americans, and we're also separately following the story of a Salvadorian mother and her child. I didn't know how I was going to feel about it because I haven't really loved multi-generational tales when I've read them. The one that comes to mind is Red at the Bone. I read that one, and I read it so long ago that I really can't remember what I didn't enjoy about it. I remember the writing was beautiful, but at the time I didn't really feel like the story was connected as a whole, and maybe I have to reread that one because it's been so long and my reading tastes have changed a little bit since then, but I just remember that I didn't quite enjoy it. One thing that I do want to point out about Of Women in Salt though is that it does follow a non-linear timeline, and it does stretch, I believe, from like 1886 or 1896 all the way to 2018, and we're often jumping from one decade to another and also jumping perspectives, and so we are following about 5 different perspectives, and it does jump in timelines, so I feel like that can be very confusing. So it is a non-linear structure. So I am generally a person that loves it when authors play with form and with rhythm and stuff like that, so I enjoyed it in this, and I don't think that it detracted from the story at all. What I loved most about this book were the characters. They each had such a unique and rich voice. They were easily distinguishable. Really enjoyed it, really loved it. I'm moving on now to Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. I've also started the Book of Accidents and The Only Good Indian, so I'm reading quite a lot right now, which is why I haven't really finished any other book. I'm reading a little bit here and a little bit there. Anyways, today Ben and I are gonna go get brunch. We rarely go out to get brunch. It's not something that we do regularly, but there was this place that we found the other day. Well, a place that he found the other day that just sounded really good. So we're gonna go get some food, and then I'll probably come back and just read the rest of the day. Yeah, it's a pretty chill day. There's mushrooms here. Hi, hello. So we're just gonna do some chores. I'm actually listening to The Only Good Indians right now, so whenever I listen to audiobooks, I like to do chores at the same time. Wow, there's a lot of mushrooms growing here. Interesting. Anyway, so I'm going to rake some leaves, start getting ahead of this because there's a bunch of them out here. So we're just going to start it today, start gathering them into piles. Yeah, so that's the plan for today. Enjoy. And I didn't like the ending. Okay, we're tackling this today. Squat stand. We have all of these right here. Beautiful. Okay, we're gonna get started. Hi, hello. So, it's been quite a while since I last updated you. Today is actually December 12th already, so it's a Sunday. I think the last time I vlogged was, I think it's been around 4 or 5 days since I last updated you on a lot of different things. Lots has been going on. I've honestly been feeling a little bit down in the dumps, so I did decide to take a couple of days off from filming, and even from social media. I haven't really been that active. It's really beneficial for me to take days off and not really interact with anyone and just focus on self-care. In general, I don't ever really go on my phone. My phone is like lost for 80% of the day until I need to listen to an audiobook or something like that. But it's just really nice to not open Instagram, not open YouTube, and just focus and relax and drink tea and read, and it's been really nice. So I did get a couple of packages and I wanted to show you. The first one here is from Read with Gabby. I bought a bookmark off of her Etsy, and so I am gonna open it. Oh. So I got this, so Ben and I like to go camping a lot, so I thought that this would be the perfect bookmark to go on our camping trips or on our hiking trips. It's this really nice like camper van bookmark on one side, and then on the other side you actually have like little cabins and stuff, which is really nice. And it has this little nice green tassel as well. So I thought it was really cute, and it is laminated too, which is really nice for camping because my bookmarks tend to get wrinkled and bent and like mud caked on them and stuff like that when I go camping, so this is really nice. And then of course we ended up going to the bookstore yet again, and I ended up buying 3 books. First, I wanted to share this beautiful edition of Not Without Laughter that Charmaine got me. This is by Langston Hughes. He is a poet. I can't quite remember the first time that I read something by Langston Hughes. I think it was like back in 4th or 5th grade. I can't remember which teacher it was, but one of my teachers really loved poetry, and so he made us read a lot of poetry, and I just remember falling in love with Langston Hughes. Now, I haven't read poetry in over like, I don't know, I want to say like 7 or 8 years. After high school and going into college, I lost my love for just personal readings, and so I did stop reading poetry and fiction books and just anything that had to do with like personal reading. I didn't do. It was all assigned reading and stuff like that. So I was really happy to just get back into reading about 2 years ago, and now I want to get back into poetry, and so Charmaine did get this off of my Amazon wish list. I can't wait to sit down with a nice cozy blanket, some candles, some nice tea, and just read this. It's so beautiful, and so thank you so much, Charmaine. Although I think Not Without Laughter might be a novel instead of poetry. This is a work by him that I haven't read, so I think it might be a novel. I will keep you updated because I actually don't know. I haven't peeked inside. Well, I peeked at the front cover because look at this. Oh yeah, but I haven't looked inside. So I will let you know if it's a poetry collection or if it's an actual novel. Along the same lines, though, this is actually a poetry collection. I saw this at the bookstore and I read one of the poems in here, and after that I was sold. I had to get it. And this is Black Girl Call Home by Jasmine Mans. And one, the cover is stunning. It's beautiful. I love all of the colors. I can't remember which of the poems I read in here, but it just floored me, and I said to myself, I have to read it. In 2022, I think I just want to read more poetry, so if you have any recommendations, let me know. The next 2 books that I bought are not poetry collections. The first one is Hood Feminism by Mikki Kendall. I already read Hood Feminism. It was one of my favorite books that I read back in 2020, and I just finally got a copy of it. It's a very good introduction to intersectional feminism. And then the last book that I ended up getting is The Last Train to Key West by Cleeton. I ended up reading The Most Beautiful Girl in Cuba last month for the Brujas and Books book club. I absolutely fell in love with it and with Cleeton, so I decided that I want to read her backlisted books. This is the one that I found, so I'll start with this one and then read the rest of her works because I really like her writing and her storytelling. So I'm really excited to have this one. I don't know what this one is about. She writes historical fiction. The last one involved 3 women. I believe this one also involves 3 women. But this one is set in the 1930s, and I think all of her books are set in Cuba, which is really nice because I get to learn more about Cuban history. So in terms of what I've been reading, I ended up finishing 3 books since we last spoke. I finished War Crows by Tochi Onyebuchi. I also finished Survive the Night by Riley Sager, and then The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig. My least favorite of these three was Survive the Night. Don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun reading it. I think I read it in like 2 days because I was just having so much fun. I ended up putting it into the good category because I was immersed, I was having fun. I wanted to shake our main character like I always do with every Riley Sager book because they always end up making really bad choices, but I guess that's part of the ride and the entertainment. There wouldn't be a book if they didn't make bad choices, you know? And honestly, I already forgot the characters' names, so forgive me. But in this one, we are following a girl who is looking for a ride share in order to go back home. So it's kind of like carpooling. It's set during a time where there weren't any cell phones or anything like that, and her roommate was killed. She's been dealing with a lot of guilt, and she's still grieving her friend, and so she just wants to leave her university. She wants to go back home and put all of this behind her because she feels responsible and guilty for her roommate's death. And so she ends up carpooling with this random guy she doesn't know, and it's like a 6 to 8 hour drive or something like that through a very deserted area of the United States. And the weird thing about the book is that our main character has these like dreams, she calls them movies, and where she is taken out of reality and she's able to envision something that happens without it really happening. And so a big part of this book is whether Charlie, is that her name? I can't remember. Well, whether our main character is actually experiencing what she's experiencing or if it's a dream. So she's a very unreliable narrator. And so throughout the ride back to her hometown, she starts to talk with this person that's driving, and she starts to notice some inconsistencies in his story, and she starts to think that this person might be the killer, the one that killed her roommate. The story takes off from there. I can't really tell you much more without spoiling any parts of the plot. Like I said, I had a lot of fun reading it while I was reading it. It was exciting. I wanted to find out what happens. There's a lot of twists and turns, especially because of the girl's movies that she sees in her mind. We don't really ever know what's true or not until we find out what actually happens. So I thought that was fun. The reason I only gave it 3 stars is even though I had a lot of fun reading it, it's nothing new or revolutionary. It's not a book that's going to stick with me. I finished it, 2 days ago, and I already forgot our main character's name. I forgot all of the characters' names. So it's not a book that is going to stick with me. I had fun. It was good. It was solid, but that's it, you know? The next 2 books that I finished, I loved for completely different reasons. The first one is The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig. Now this was massive. It took me like 4 or 5 days to finish because it's over 500 pages long. But I really like what Chuck Wendig did here. If you have seen Dark on Netflix, I think it's a German TV series. I can't tell you what the TV series is about, but if you've watched it and you like it, I think you'll really like The Book of Accidents. It has that same kind of cold, wet, and dark atmosphere, and some of the elements in Dark are similar to some of the elements in The Book of Accidents. That's all I will say because I don't want to spoil The Book of Accidents for you, but I really enjoyed it. It was dark, it was cold, but it wasn't depressing. I had been reading a lot of depressing and dark and sinister books the past few weeks, and they just really bogged me down. I didn't feel that way with this one, even though it was dark. I do want to point out that there is violence and there is domestic abuse and abuse of children, so do keep that in mind going in. Those are trigger warnings, but it didn't feel super depressing, if that makes sense. What I love the most about The Book of Accidents is that there's a lot of different plot lines that are explored and then they come together very seamlessly. It also has a sort of early Stephen-esque feel, but without all of the wordiness that Stephen King has. Like, Stephen King really writes to write, and don't get me wrong, there are a lot of detailed passages in The Book of Accidents, but it's not super wordy. I ended up putting The Book of Accidents in the great category. There were some things in the end that kind of made me go, I don't know. There was something about the ending, and I can't put it into words right now, but I'll talk a little bit more about it during my December wrap-up. But there was just something about it that left me a little bit unsatisfied. That's why it's not in the excellent category. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. What I can say is that we have this family that is moving from the city. I can't remember if they're in New York. They're in a big city, and the father in the family ends up finding out that his abusive father is dying and that he is selling his home to him for $1. And initially they don't want to take it because there's a lot of negative feelings there, a lot of dark history there, but they needed to start over. So they do end up buying the house for $1. and they end up moving back to their hometown and trying to start a new life. We also find out that the town has a dark history. There was a serial killer there in the past who was already executed, but he had kidnapped girls and killed them, and the mother in this story may be tied or connected to that person in some way. We don't really know. And then we also have their kid who has some sort of sixth sense. He's able to see emotions in other people and really feel them and channel them, and that's something that he struggles with. So really interesting book. That's all I'll say. I really like the atmosphere. I really liked how all of these disparate and separate pieces came together at the end. Really cool. Really liked it. The last book that I ended up finishing was War Girls by Tochi Onyebuchi. And I ended up picking this one up because I read Riot Baby back in 2020, 2019, the year that it came out. And I ended up really enjoying it and feeling really intrigued with the author. I love the way that this author interweaves thematic elements into their books and storylines. And I also really enjoy their experimental writing style. And so that is one thing to know before you go into any Tochi Onyebuchi book. I've only read 2 of their works so far, but I do have to say that they do like to play with time. They like to play with flashbacks. So I don't recommend listening to their works as audiobooks unless you're just really good at following stories in audiobook format. I know that I personally cannot follow plot lines if there's flashbacks and jumps in time in audiobook format. I just have to have a personal book in front of me. But if that doesn't bother you, or if that's not the case for you, then go right ahead. But in this one, we're following 2 sisters, Onyi and Ife, and they are stuck on 2 sides of the Nigerian war. This book is set in the far future where climate change has sort of decimated Earth, and a lot of wealthy and privileged people have gone up into space and created colonies. And during this time, there's also a Nigerian civil war going on between the Nigerians and the Biafrans. And honestly, I'm really sad to say that I didn't know a lot of Nigerian history before going into this book. This book has made me want to learn more, and I don't think that you need to know the history before going in. The author does an amazing job at explaining what's going on, what the conflict is, and really helping you get there in terms of the history that you need to know to understand the political and war elements that are going on. The core of this book is really about sisterhood, about impossible choices, about the lives and the choices that kids are forced to live in war-torn places. So I highly recommend this book. It was so good, and I do believe there is a sequel. I think this is a duology, so I will be jumping into that hopefully in January. So I did end up DNFing Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. I don't know what it was, I just wasn't feeling the book. It was very character driven. It's a love story with a sci-fi kind of background, and I think I'm just not in a sci-fi mood right now. I'm leaning for some reason into historical fiction and horror at the moment, so that is what I'm reading. I actually ended up picking up The Perfect Place to Die by Bryce Moore, and the reason I was really intrigued to pick this one up is because I read The Devil in the White City back in 2019, and it's set during the Chicago World Fair, and we have H.H. Holmes, who was a serial killer. So The Devil in the White City is told from his perspective, but it also has a history lens behind the Chicago World Fair. This one is told from the perspective of a girl who's looking for her sister. Her sister was potentially murdered at the castle, and she's trying to find out what happens to her. So I just wanted to see what it was like from a different perspective. This is a young adult book. So far, I'm really enjoying it. It's really easy to read. I think I'm about halfway through. Yeah, I'm about halfway through. So that was my brief update. This might be the end to this vlog. I'll go ahead and start another one tomorrow, Monday, fresh start to the week. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!